one thing I want to say is I'm just hoping that everyone finds something that they can take with them at the end of the 2 days that will help them. Self-determination means just that. You know, it's up to each community to determine how they want to proceed. What we will talk about is maybe some of the complications in doing that. You know, maintaining relationships. There's very much a divide and conquer process used by the governments. And I often felt conflicted by that because our mandate was spiritual, it was to create relationships, it was to pass on information, and yet the government was coming in and making decisions about the land that meant that we had to dance on the edge of a knife. How much do I want to give up sovereignty and participate in their method? I don't, but yet I know that the machinery is moving up the land and destroying it. And the only mechanism I can use to complain and fight that is through the provincial documentation environmental review process. So, you know, I'm feeling like we're very caught. We're still caught. So that's why I say, you know, what you take from this is up to you. We will be talking about free, prior, and informed consent. And again, it's like the little teepee that went up. They're going to talk a little bit about that. Some machinery went up on the land. 5 young men from Marcel's family put the teepee up to let people know that there was some disagreement. We weren't sure what was happening. And the FPIC, you know, if you wait for government to put that into power and into law, it'll never happen. But what we did learn through our journey is that there's always a way around something. You know, there's always a way to get things started. So when we do some of those sort of political pieces, it's just an urge and a way of getting you started. But I want you to start today with the absolutely delightful and knowledgeable and spiritual people that led Camp Morning Star. Marcel Hardisty, I first met back in, I hate to say it, 19 something or other when I was 25, and he wasn't much older, because I taught his daughter. And he came to camp. He has a very, very strong sense of self, sense of his history, sense of his people, sense of prior resource development. And he was the one that mandated that camp be spiritual, and that we proceed in a certain way. And as a technique, it really worked for the political side too, because it allowed us to get our story out, as opposed to going into a conflict mode right away, right, of defense. So that was part of it. But you know what? I'm holding things up. Marcel is one of the best storytellers I know, and it's time for him to share his story with you. So thank you, Marcel Hardisty.
Well, good morning. Thank you for being here. As MJ said, I came in to help those young men. They come to my home and board a teepee, no idea what they were up to. Coldest night in February 16. It was already dark, and they said, "We need to borrow your teepee." I said, "Yeah, go ahead." I thought in a few days they would use it. "No, tonight. We need it tonight. We're setting it up tonight." So that's what they did. And then next day they said that, "Now we need to know about what to do here. We have the teepee set up." I said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "We're resisting Silica Sand extraction project." I hadn't heard anything about this up until then. And one of my nephews was actually an employee of Canadian Premium Sand. And he's the guy who asked his other cousins to stand with him. So there was 5 of them. 1 was my brother, 2 of them was my sons, and 2 nephews. And we're descendants of Treaty 5 signatory, John Hardisty. His name is Waabanang. That means Morning Star. So that's why they called that Camp Morning Star. And so the next day, one of the brothers, Kelvin Ramsey, the main firekeepers, he said, well, I know how to start the fire. I know what the sacred fire is about. There's different fires that we could use, he says, but we'll use a fire that I was taught. That fire will call in the ancestors, the protectors of the land, the Bear Clan people. So I said, okay, well, go ahead. I'll help whatever it is that you want me to do. I'll be here. Whenever you want me to be at camp, I'll be here. So my role was basically to be around and share some teachings that I've heard over the years. Lance and I have worked in the community probably almost 40 years. We worked always with females. Ladies were always telling us what to do. And that's how it's been for Anishinaabe people. I watched my grandparents, I watched my relatives. Every time there was tough decisions to be made, the women would be making those decisions. And the men would stand back and say how they would support or wait for instructions about how they would support what the women wanted to do. So basically that's how it went for us. All the males that stood with the women to begin to address the impact of colonization, the Indian Act, day school, residential school, and talking about how do we get better as a people. So a process called CHCH was born around that time. CHCH is the words that we used to talk about how everyone is responsible for the well-being of children and the community. And we followed those principles when we set up this resistance or decided to be a part of this resistance to Silica Sand project extraction. Right in the midst of our communities, right in the middle of Manigataugan, Seymourville, Hollow Water, Agamin. Right in the center, this plant was going to be constructed there to extract silica sand for the purpose of fracking. They were after oil, gas companies were after that sand so they could use it to fracture rock where they can have access to gas and oil below that rock. That's how the silica sand was to be used. And this is not the first time. We were moved from our original ancestral homeland, Black Island, Deer Island, and Hecla Island. That's where this happened from the 1920s to the late 1980s. So they operated there for about 60, 70 years. And the mess is still there. If you go back to that island today, you'll see the Red River that flows from that place because the water, the exposed sand and rock releases acidic water and it turns everything red. When you go on that space there, you think you're on the planet Mars or something. Nothing grows. So they moved us off that island shortly after the treaty was signed in 1875. And then they started to mine it and they started to extract also the timber. And they were doing exploration for nickel and gold and copper on those islands. So that's what happened. And then now this project, Silica Sand Extraction Project, being proposed would have been much bigger than what had happened on Black Island. 5,000 acres of land would have been extracted from there. And our community, our reserve, our land is only 4,000 acres. So when these young men stood up, a lot of people were happy that they stood up. People came by to let us know you're doing the right thing. Hang in there. So we did for 5 years. Summer, spring, fall, winter. Our firekeepers stood their ground. They stayed there. And we said we don't want to be adversarial. We are not protesters. We are land protectors, water protectors. We had heard previously that women all over the nation, all over Turtle Island, would be walking on the highways, creating awareness about protecting, the importance of protecting the waters of Turtle Island. So we were happy to be part of that, protecting the land, protecting the waters, the air. So that is why we agreed to get involved, and then we started to notice what was happening after the company took machinery in there and they clear-cutted a huge area. And they used a permit that was earmarked for another location. There was construction of East Side Road along east of Lake Winnipeg. That's where that permit was issued. But they used that permit to clear cut where they were proposing to build the Silica Sand plant. And what happened after that, after the clearing of that land, what we noticed is that the animals started coming right into the community. The first time in the history of Wanipigow school, they had to have a lockdown because a mother bear and her cubs would come right into the playground. Not just one bear, but a few bears. And then a mother moose and her baby came right into the community. I think it was Jocelyn here and his brother-in-law or his nephew that saved that little moose from the dogs. And they took that baby moose back into the bush with the mother. So these things were happening, and I don't know if anyone else noticed, but we did. We knew what that meant. These animals were coming in there representing our ancestors. Our ancestors have been living in that area, that region, for over 15,000 years. And in that time, there was no life form that was ever threatened to extinction. In those 15,000 years, there was no contamination of any water source. There was no over-harvest of the timber. All of these things because we lived the Anishinaabe philosophy, we lived the Anishinaabe worldview. As a people, we knew our place in creation because the stories that ancestors shared with the people were that the first family created was Mother Earth, Grandmother Moon, Grandfather Sun, Father Sky. And the first children of this family is the air, the water, plant life, animal life, bird life, fish life. And these things would live forever if you and I were not here. The most prized creation is us, the human being, but we're also the most dependent. We need what creation provides. Creation does not need anything from me or you. That was need to be understood by politicians and industrialists and the elite of this country, because all they care about is profit. So it's been a great journey. It's been a hell of an experience to meet lots of different people who think the way Anishinaabe thinks. Because Anishinaabe believes that we have to care for this place. The word itself, Anishinaabe, means once everything was created and prepared by the Great Spirit, the Creator, then He put us here. From whence lowered the people, that's who we are, Anishinaabe. We speak Anishinaabe language. So it's our responsibility to protect what it is that we have. The Indian Act was not created by my people, it was created by Europeans, settlers, newcomers, through their government. They made the Indian Act so they can come to our people and say, we need to make a treaty. But the Indian Act says you have to elect a chief and council. That is not our way. Indian Act is not our way. Our way is the clan system. The clan grandmothers, the clan grandfathers are the authority of life, of how we live, how we utilize the resources of Mother Earth. We've been talking about this for the last 40 years, trying to convince our leadership, revitalize our own way. We've been trying to use the Indian Act for the last 150 years. It hasn't worked for us. The Indian Act advances the interests of the colonizer. That's why they created the Indian Act. Indian Act elected leadership has to collaborate with Canada and the provinces. And when the explorers were sent over here around 1492, they saw the wealth of the land, and that's what they wanted, and that's what they still want today. Today, it's the chief and councils are the Indian agents. Indian Act elected people are Indian agents. They work for Canada and the provinces. They don't work for you, Anishinaabe people. They don't. That's why they can do things as they do. That's why they can get away without doing consultation. It's happening every time, every day it's happening. When they get elected, they think that they are now the masters of the people. They forget that they were put there by the people. The people are the masters. Leadership are the servants, public servants. But that's not been understood for a long, long time. So that's one of the other things we have to work on as a people, as Anishinaabe people, all over Turtle Island. Indian Act has been a very destructive piece of legislation, probably the worst that has ever been created by man. I often wondered, why is there an Indian Act? How come there's no Englishman Act, Frenchman Act, Spanish Man Act, Black Man Act? You know, how come there's no other acts? Only the Indian has to have an act. We have to act Indian. So that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. So thank you for coming and listening to some of our journey. My journey is not my own, it's also yours. This is our home. There's only one planet Earth. If we destroy it, we destroy ourselves. So over the years, I've heard elders say that someday, and the prophecies also talk about it, someday all of us will understand our place in creation. Otherwise, there will be no future for the next 7 generations of my people and your people. All of us, we come from a long line of ancestry. My people from here on Turtle Island, 15,000 years of ancestry. And those are the ones we call on to help us when we stand against industrial policy, governmental policy, chief and council policy. You also have ancestry that you can call on. You may not know about it at this point in time, or maybe you do, but are afraid to do so, because that's how it was for us. There was a lot of fear created amongst Anishinaabe people through all the systems that Canada introduced, whether it's religion, education, child and family services, justice, health departments, All of those systems were a tool to impose assimilation or extermination of Anishinaabe people. So many of us have been assimilated. Not completely. Thank God for that. Some of us have returned back to our spirit through ceremony. And that seems to be what's giving us the courage to stand up to industry, to government, to our own chief and councils. So wherever possible, if you're in the area to attend ceremony, please do so. It builds your spirit, it builds your being to be who you were meant to be, a free person. Someone who's not afraid to ask questions. I just heard about a situation here right in the city of Winnipeg. There's a forest called Lemay Forest. I've been there. I feel the energy of that forest. There's 5 or 6 sweat lodges in that area. Well, everybody goes there. I've seen all walks of people go there to participate in ceremony. Now developers, politicians, industrialists are wanting to destroy that. It's right by the river, right behind the Behavioral Health Foundation, right beside Villa Maria Retreat. We can't allow that to happen. We have to stand up and be heard. We'll do ceremony. We'll ask our ancestors to intervene. There's so many things that I can share with you that happened at Camp Morningstar. Most people wouldn't believe it if they didn't see it for themselves. The one they call Sasquatch or Bigfoot, he came there. He let us know that we were doing the right thing. We were singing on the big drum, singing his song, and the whole prospector tent was shaking. And there was big prints of big hands on the top of that prospector tent. After a thunderstorm, Red was coming to camp and he saw a flock of birds, he thought, flying towards the camp. When he got close, he recognized that it was all bats, all different sizes of bats, huge ones, middle-sized, and small ones. Amongst our people, bats are protectors. They're the ones who protect all of creation, along with the Bear Clan people. The other thing you need to know about Silica Sand, the spiritual significance of that sand. One elder shared that when you look in the night sky and you see what the Western astronomers call the Milky Way, well, our people have a different name for it. Kagege Mikana, forever road or spirit road. When we leave this place and we go back to where we came from, the spirit world, that's where we walk with our ancestors. That's what those stars represent, that Silica Sand. He said in the springtime when the thunder beings come, the first ones, they're very loud because they come to activate the healing energy of that sand. All the plant life. Everything that lives has energy, has spirit. And the job of those thunder beings are to come and activate that energy in the springtime. After that happens, the ants will go and collect those silica sand particles and take it to their nest. And then the black bear will come along and eat those ants and the pebbles. That's where they get their healing energy. That's why the Black Bear Clan people are the ones that look after medicines, and they're the healers and protectors of the community. Our people used to travel thousands of miles to come to Black Island to collect those pebbles after they've been activated. And that's what they use in their rattles, shishigonak, because that is our connection to spirit world. That's how we speak to Creator and the helpers in the four directions, and also to our ancestors. We sing those songs with hand drum or the big drum. That's to honor the ones that have hooves, the deer, the moose, the elk, the caribou. That's another clan. They represent sharing and kindness. When we sound that drum and we sing that song, that energy is taken to Creator, the helpers in the four directions, and the ancestors. The pipe represents the stone, as the mountain represents faith, represents the female. The stem represents the plant world, the tree represents honesty. You put those together, it's a powerful force. Everything recreates, everything is reborn through a process. It's both about spirituality and sexuality. The sacred relationship between Grandmother Moon, Mother Earth, Grandfather Sun, Father Sky, that is a sacred relationship. One without the other, no life on earth. Just like you and I. Man on his own cannot create life. Woman on her own cannot create life. Always together, always needed, always a balance. So these are the kinds of teachings that you will learn if you take the time and you offer your tobacco to elders, male and female. And then that way you become strong and you will stand up to your government, your industrial people, and the people that make policy about how to extract all the resources of the land irresponsibly. You know these treaties that were made? Treaty 1, Treaty 2, Treaty 3, they're all down here in the south along the border of the United States and Canada, because that's where all the rich soil is, because the early settlers were mostly farmers. Treaty 5 territory is 3/4 of Manitoba. We're all bog, sand, and rock. Shkunigan, that's what the people called it, leftover land. That's Treaty 5. There's over 100,000 people there. If we can convince all those people to get rid of the Indian Act and go back to the clan system, we are going to be a powerful force to contend with. And that's what chiefing councils are afraid of. Because then everyone is in that circle. We're no longer going to be operating in that hierarchy, the triangle. Circle is inclusive. Triangle is exclusive. So back to the circle, back to the land and water. Protect what the Creator gave us. Miigwech.